Okay, so I'm back. Had a quick issue I had to take care of. One of the issues I had is this morning I showed you these little clips that go on. They're kind of a locking pin deal here for the nuts. So there's a link pin one, which is this one I'm going to try and show you. And the one I showed you this morning was for ball joint. So there's a difference in there, and so I wanted to make sure I got the right one before we created this process. So just quickly, again, I want to show you now that I put the hub on there. It does have one of the washers. I'll try and zoom in there a little bit. One of the washers in there, and then one of the nuts. And it spins pretty good. Obviously, it's some high temp wheel bearing grease, so don't have any problem. It's not tight. It's snug to the specs. Please look at your manual when it comes to your years. I don't want to get into that because I'd have to cite them all off. But please look at your specs. So it's there, and then we're at a point now where we're going to want to put this on and put the secondary nut on there that locks it into play. So what I'm going to do is this little tab that's on here. You can kind of see this little tab here, that one right there. You're going to bend that tab so that way we can get it to slide in the notch there on the spline. Okay, so we're going to do that. Okay, so now the tab has been bent over. Can you see that? So we're going to put this on here. And what that's going to do is it's going to fall in the spline there with the nut. It's kind of unique. It fits. There you go. And you can help it a little bit. But ultimately, once the other nut sits on it, it'll be fine. Again, there's no movement, and we're good to the spec. So here is the other nut, wheel nut. Now, another thing to remember too is, again, some of you guys that are the German guys, you guys have been doing this a long time, so I don't really probably need to tell you, and it's redundant, but for some of you who haven't, this is maybe your first bus or whatever, reverse threads. Okay, so you know you're going to want to spin it right tight and left loose. This is the other way around, and so it's important to remember that. Otherwise, you'll end up damaging it. So, as you can see, we're going to the left to tighten it, and I've seen that happen. So I just thought I'd roll that by there. And again, these once they line up. Once the two bolts line up there, or nuts line up, sorry, they will match up to a point where you can cinch them down pretty good. Okay, and I'll put those on just a little bit. I kind of want to go through the process for you so you can check your specs after, but I just kind of want to tell you what you're doing. Those nuts right there, this tab that you see right here, one's going to bend over on that nut to prevent it from backing off, and then this one's going to bend over on the bottom. So you can, let me just do that for you. You can love tap it with anything. It's pretty malleable, and you can pretty much tap it into play, and we should be good. And then I'll do the bottom here. Okay, so I banged on that one a little bit, and we got it to fold over. Second nut's on there, and let me try and get a little light on that. Might be easier to see. There we go. So we'll fold over a little bit on that first nut, so it keeps that from backing off. And then below, kind of the same concept, but coming over to the second nut so that that doesn't back off. Okay. There's no cotter pin on here, so that's kind of one of the things that they're utilizing for their safety. So you can see as you look at the splines, there's no cotter pin. There's no room for that. Some people have drilled through that spline and put a cotter pin in. Seen that a couple of times. Not going to do that. Haven't had any issues with it in the past, so kind of that's where we're at. Okay, so I want to show you the calipers, 4-piston caliper that came from Saco. Really nice aluminum finish, dual bleeders on each side. It comes with, oddly enough, comes with Willwood brake pads. Willwood brake pads. So you got the feeders again on the bleeders on each side. Then your I haven't pulled this off yet, but this is where your feed for your brake line is going to go. So just a kind of a brief synopsis of what's happening. This is with that one, where that's going to be. Okay. Really nice setup. Very clean, very nice looking. This is the only question that a lot of the forums had was this right here. This bolt going through. It's an Allet head bolt. And I think that's if I'm not mistaken, it's a 12 millimeter. It's possible, or maybe a 7/16 nut. The pressure. So people are squeezing these, like you're tightening them, so that they're so tight that the caliper itself squeezes on the rotor and it won't turn. So I called Saco and I called Ronnie at Bustoration. So this nylon head, this bolt itself is just, it doesn't have to be super loose, but it doesn't have to be super tight either. It's really just designed to let these pads float in there. So don't crank this down, because that's not what it's there for. It's really just a holder. As you can see, the pads will move back and forth. If you crank this thing down, you're cranking the entire caliper down onto the rotor and it won't turn. So that's been an issue, and I just want to make sure I kind of go over that so that way everybody's aware. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to pause it a little bit. What we're going to do is we're going to get the bolts that come with them here to mount them. I'm going to take those and we're going to mount it to the back. Very simple process, but you'll notice that each of them have 2 washers on them, right? They gave you some additional washers in the kit. Some of the ball joint setups, they don't need the additional washer. They won't need the second one. But on the link pin, which is mine, it does. It needs the link. It needs that secondary washer. And you're saying, well, why? It's because the head of this, once it goes through here, right, and then it screws into the brake caliper assembly. If you leave one washer on there, the top of this head of this bolt is pretty darn close to the rotor. Okay, it won't actually hit it, but you know, hey, let's err on the side of caution. So they give you an additional washer, and the reason why they don't machine, I think, the bolt is because the washer is so thin that that's the exact tolerance. Like that's exactly what you need, and then this will sit flush, and then you won't have the problem with it coming close to your rotor. So just want to make sure you guys look at those. A lot of times, you know, I'm pretty old school. You see additional washers and stuff like that when you're putting things on. You're like, I don't need it. Link pin, you're going to need those 2. Ball joint, you'll probably only need 1. Okay, but each application is a little different. I just want to make sure I touch on those. So I'm going to put that on there. Just give me a second. I'm going to move my tools around here, and then we'll get back to it. Okay, so we're back a little bit. I got you some light. I wanted to show you what we're looking at. So right here in the back of the rotor are the 2 bolts holes where the caliper right there is going to bolt onto. 14 millimeter bolt. Again, I showed you those gold ones that come with them. Very simple process. You're going to take a bolt, and I found that if you just do the front one first, it seems to line up pretty good. The ticket, let me put this down for just a sec. So the ticket is going to be making sure that the brake pads line up pretty straight with the rotor, because it makes it slide over pretty easy. And then we're up here, we have this first bolt started, And don't get all carried away and try and tighten it down right off the bat, because you're going to need a little movement around, see, to get that bolt hole lined up. So you take the second one, and we're here, kind of fish around to find out where it's at. There we go. And basically it's about as easy as that. I mean, the thread tolerances and everything for the kit are really, really nice. I mean, you're noticing that I'm doing this by hand, by finger. I mean, almost everything is done that same way. So again, here you have the back side of the caliper. This is going to be where your, once I peel that out, this is going to be where your brake line is going to come into. And then these, obviously, you're going to bleed both. Now, with buses, let me come out here, kind of show you what it looks like here. All done. Looks really pretty. Huh? See? Rolling nice. Okay. And you'll see there's not a lot of tolerance there with the brakes, because obviously there's no fluid in the calipers to make them move back and forth. I'm going to tighten these up here in just a sec. But you'll notice with the brakes, with the buses, one of the ticket items with buses has always been bleeding these brakes. Now, if you've had your bus for a while, like I have, and you've done a brake job, in other words, you put on shoes and things of that nature, or even replace those cylinders, the wheel cylinders, then you, like me, have probably cussed and made up cuss words for all the time that you've spent, stomping on the brake and opening the bleeder and so on and so forth. I've done it multiple different ways. I've done, one of the back corners, come to one of the front corners, go back to the back corner, go back. I've done both backs, both fronts, both backs. I've done it every single way you possibly can. This setup, I ran into a little Hawaiian friend of mine, and this setup is very, very simple. So what you're going to want to do is, once you go to the disc brake conversion, and it really doesn't matter which one you use, backs first. Once all the lines and everything are done, bleed, fill it up, dot 3, bleed your back brakes first, back drums first, okay, or back discs if you're going to go all the way around. Backs first, okay. Once you get some pressure there, okay, then move to the fronts. Once you get the fronts done and you feel like everything's do one more round of it just to bleed out, make sure you got all the air out, and you're good to go, okay. Backs first, then fronts, then one more round of it, nice and easy, and then you should be good to go. He's done it on probably, I'm going to say 6 or 7 buses, and it's worked every single time. You guys, again, in the comment sections can blow me up. There might be a different method. I'm not saying that mine is the only way. I'm just saying that that's the way I know that it's worked. And again, some guys are doing it, and it seems to work pretty well. Okay, so that's basically it for the kit and the install. There is some other items that I kind of want to show you so that you're familiar with. One thing I will tell you that you're going to need to know is you are definitely going to need a dual master cylinder kit, okay? A dual master cylinder. Some people are doing it with single master cylinders. Good luck with that. I'm very sketchy with letting that happen, only because you really are, this is your life in your hands here, and the buses, these old vehicles, they just weren't built for that kind of impact. Single master cylinders will work. I have seen them on there, but it's very, very sketchy. You definitely want to have the correct pressure in the lines, and you definitely want to be able to separate those so that in the case of an emergency where you lose some pressure in your back, that you still have the pressure in the front to stop, or vice versa. That's the madness behind it. Feel free to do whatever you need to do on your bus. I just kind of want to give you that, hey, you should probably do it. I purchased the master cylinder that came with it because I'm going to do it the right way. I want to make sure it's done. But I also wanted to show you some of the packaging that it comes in, because really, quite frankly, you know, I have never dealt with Saco Performance or German Auto, so, and I think anybody wants to research it, you'll know. I'm not promoting anybody that I know from there or so forth, because I don't. But I do like to promote the fact when people are doing things correctly, companies, whatever it may be, they're doing things nice and correctly and really taking the time. And a couple of things that stood out, this little badge, you know, it's 44 years in the industry. German Auto and Saco, they're from, again, Santa Fe Springs. Look them up online. It's under Saco Performance. Don't look under German Auto because for some reason it won't pop up. But, you know, the 44 years of doing stuff, they've definitely worked pretty hard at it. You know, again, the rotors and the caliper setup, very, very nicely done. The machine work on the bracketry and the welds, very clean, you know, very well done. Sturdy steel. Holes are already countersunk for those Allen wrenches so that they look, there we go, so that they sit flush in there. Very nicely done. Threads are very well tapped and ready to go. It's just a nice kit. Wheel bearings come in packaged so that they're nice, kept clean. They're not just dangling around, so you can go back and pack these and make sure you guys pack these wheel bearings really, really well. I'm sure you guys are doing it. I don't need to go into that, but very nicely done. Even the calipers in the box, they are nicely packed in there. Let me try and see if I can get this one open. They're in there with their plastic wrapper, so none of the aluminum, gets buffed or scratched. You got some packing paper, whatever it may be. But you know, I mean, nicely done with the packaging. I've ordered tremendous amounts of parts from different manufacturers, and just, I'm sure you guys know, beat to heck, scratched up, blah, blah, blah. I don't really have the time to go back and send them back to get it to get done again. And I thought that was really well done on their part. Really neat setup. So if you guys are looking to purchase a disc brake conversion kit for the front or for the back or whatever, and you're looking on a budget, kind of like I am, this kit was about $895 taxed out and all that out of the job. But I will tell you, I spent $1,000, but you have to remember, I bought a master cylinder kit. I bought a bunch of the brake line. I really spent, you know, everything I really, really need, every nut and bolt. So I was right under $1,000. So if that helps you guys at all that are trying to put your budgets together, you're going to be right under $1,000 if you do the master cylinder and the home conversion. I'm going to probably do a video on that because that's where I'm at right now, just so you guys know. The other side is pretty well prepped and ready to go. This is going to go on pretty easy, but the master cylinder is a bit of a challenge. So I might do a video on that just so you guys can see it from underneath. I'm going to probably have to prop up my camera and things of that nature so I can let you guys see it. But I'll try and do another video on that because that might be helpful too. There's some gaskets and some other stuff that you can use to move stuff around. So I'm gonna try that, and then hopefully that'll help you too. If you guys, again, have any comments or anything I missed, anything you want added or could be added to help out, I'm one of those old school VW guys. So please add to the comments so that way you guys can help everyone out. I love the VW families, and I think it's great how we share. So add some comments in there and I'll be happy to do it. And then once I do the brake master cylinder video, I'll put that up there online too. Hope it helped, and have a good day.